Aaron Rodgers is finally a New York Jet as the Jets and Packers come together. They find a way to get this done. Aaron Rodgers finally in the building. There he is right there at One Jets Drive in Florham Park, guys. A lot of excitement, I think, for both sides. I think the Packers are happy this is over, and the Jets are happy that Zach Wilson is no longer their starting quarterback here.
I'm happy he's wearing sleeves. A lot of times he comes into you see this shot, it's not always sleeves.
Yeah, it was a very modest entrance by Aaron Rodgers standards. Let's see what happens with training camp, though.
We will see. It's still, look, we knew this was coming. This was rumored for a long time, and then it was officially announced. It finally happens. It's still weird.
That
it's still
weird.
Isn't. That's what I'm saying. It's still weird to see 12, to see Aaron Rodgers wearing anything but Packers gear, and so. It's weird, but I think, thank goodness this happened, right? I mean, I think it's one of those things that actually makes sense for all parties involved. The Packers needed to see what they have in Jordan Love. They needed to move on. They needed to get out from that contract. Rodgers still has good football left in him. The Jets are legitimately a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. They have a great defense. They have a strong core of their offense other than quarterback, and now they've got a quarterback.
And you see the trade details right here. Obviously, it does have ramifications on the NFL draft this year as the teams swap their first-round picks. Green Bay will now be picking at 13. It'll be interesting to see if that's used on a wide receiver after Aaron Rodgers leaves. In Jackson Smith and Jigba, of course, the Jets now picking 15th. Conditional terms tied to the future 2024. If he plays 65% of the Jets' snaps, offensive snaps, then that will become a first-round pick for Green Bay. But, Jay, I think the big story at hand is here before we get to the actual supporting cast Rodgers will be working with. What does this do for Aaron Rodgers in the fantasy world? Because the back-to-back MVPs last year clearly hurt. Supporting cast went downhill. Now he goes into a situation with Garrett Wilson and eventually Breece Hall.
Yeah, well, firstly, I've had a few people come up to me on the street saying, congratulations on your Jets. I'm like, my Jets? Winnipeg Jets? Connor Hellebuck? Apparently my Jets. Apparently
they are your Jets.
Yeah, they're our
Sauce
Jets.
Gardner Jersey made plenty of appearances this year.
You jump around so much, you've forgotten which teams you've publicly
Jets.
backed.
Okay, I'm a Jets
yes,
fan.
You are a Jets fan.
Yeah, so it's good that Aaron Rodgers is with us now. I think
us.
the thing is last year, he was hurt for a lot of last season. The offensive line was banged up. Bakhtiari was in and out. He didn't have any wide receivers. Romeo Doubs was his number one wide receiver to start the season effectively. He gets hurt. And then Christian Watson comes on late. But I just don't think that you can write off Rodgers based off last year, but you also can't expect that he's just going to go back to MVP form. You would think that this is a better situation just because Garrett Wilson is such a weapon that he didn't have. So I would expect that Rodgers will be better just with health, with Wilson, with more weapons. But I don't think he goes back to being like a top 6, top 7 fantasy quarterback.
No, I don't think so either, not even close. I mean, a couple of things here to consider, right? Number one is he doesn't run anymore. And so what you need when if you're a non-running quarterback, you just need high touchdown velocity to be an elite fantasy quarterback, the way that Joe Burrow, and even Joe Burrow runs more than I think Rodgers will at this stage of his career. But you need to be in the 40 touchdown passing range. And I just don't see Rodgers doing that based on an offense that honestly still will be a little bit conservative. I think it'll be balanced, because they have such a strong run game and they also have a really good defense. So they're not going to be in shootouts. They're not going to need Rodgers to put up 35, 38 points in a game to win games. They're going to be able to win games 27-24, right? I mean, so I think that limits his fantasy upside. I will say there are some positives, right? Nathaniel Hackett, everyone talks about, he's getting Garrett Wilson, he's getting Breece Hall. He's also he's got Alan Lazard, and we'll talk about that in a second, right? So he's got some familiar faces around him and some talent around him, but also Nathaniel Hackett is the new offense coordinator, and so there's at least a shorthand there between Hackett and Rodgers in terms of the kind of plays that they like to call. So it's not just him coming in. Obviously there's a lot of easy comparisons to Favre going to the Jets. But the fact is that when Favre went to the Jets, it was a completely different offensive system. And, the stories that came out afterwards about Favre, at least on the football field, were that he was just making up plays because he didn't know the playbook, right? And
he got there August 6th,
Right, exactly. So here, Rodgers goes into a situation with a coordinator that he's familiar with, that he likes, obviously. And so I think he's a mid-tier QB2 that could flirt with QB1 upside in the right matchup. I think he's a streamable starter. He's could be in the top 12. My initial ranks, I'm at QB15. Again, we'll see how the draft comes out. My ranks will come out as soon as the draft is over, and we've sorted everyone out. But in my initial ranks, I'm at QB 15 right now.
Same tier as like Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, those type of
Yeah,
guys?
Jared Goff, like just slightly ahead of Jared Goff, like right there in that kind of mid-tier, yeah.
How excited are you, Connor?
I mean, I have Jones a little bit higher, yeah. But yeah.
Super Bowl?
The Jets.
For our Jets?
We're not going to go that far.
Fourth
there.
favorite in the AFC now.
I think the win total was only at 9.5.
Much respect.
When the Rodgers trade happened, how much did the market move?
Well, I mean, it's just
They were
we knew it was
bracing
going to
for
happen. We knew it was going to happen, so kind of the adjustment was already made. But I mean, they were a team that it's just the leap from not Rodgers to Rodgers. It's just you go from a team that cannot win the Super Bowl with their present situation to a team that absolutely can now. Like right now on BetMGM, the Jets are the 6th favorite for the
crazy.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They're the 4th favorite in the AFC. So they're right there. They're plus 700 for the AFC, and the Bills plus 500. Like, it's not that big of a gap.
Yeah, wow.
I would just be a little bit concerned that any team that was built on an elite top 5 defense just regresses. It's more variable year to year, whereas you just know what you're going to get out of the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bengals because of Allen, Mahomes, and Burrow. So that would be the one thing, but the defense, the talent is still there. They should definitely be a top 10 unit, and then it's about the offense. So, I mean, they're going to be right there.
So from a fantasy perspective, it feels like the bigger ramifications are on the players around Aaron Rodgers, because there were weeks last year, many weeks, where Garrett Wilson, who won Offensive Rookie of the Year, was held back by Zach Wilson. He had great weeks with whether it was Joe Flacco, Mike White. Now you look at Garrett Wilson's projection with Aaron Rodgers in year 2, where he just won Offensive Rookie of the Year. How much of a bump is this for Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, the problem is that it is a bump, but it sort of doesn't matter, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Like, so I'm at wide receiver 11 in my current ranks. The issue is that if you look at sort of early ADP and where he's going, like in early dynasty drafts, but more importantly, like in best ball drafts that are going on right now, like he's already being drafted like as a top 12 wide receiver. So the upside that's going to be there is already sort of baked in. I don't know how much higher he can go, just because he is one of those buzzy players, because of the way he ended the season, because, to your point, Jay, people expected Rodgers to happen. This isn't a shock. You know, we knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when. And so the upside is already sort of baked into his current ADP. But yes, I think he's a borderline wide receiver 1 this season. Unbelievable talent. And for all the talk about the connection between Rodgers and Lazard, the fact of the matter is that Aaron Rodgers is not stupid. And we like Alan Lazard. He's a nice little player. He ain't Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's special.
Yeah, and the thing with Wilson that gives you so much confidence is that he was able to do it with so many different quarterbacks and so many below-average quarterbacks, frankly, last year, that he had that connection with Mike White. He had it with Joe Flacco earlier in the season. It didn't go so great with Zach Wilson, but he had games there too. So he is kind of, I think, system-proof. He's just too talented.
I think down the list, the guy I'm most fascinated by, if you want to talk about actual bumps, would be Tyler Conklin.
Sure.
Because you look at just the connection Rodgers had with Tunyon, and you think Conklin, not a top 10 tight end in fantasy by any stretch of the means, had some nice weeks last year, but we know Rodgers will lean on a tight end at times, and Conklin's the guy that gets the targets in the offense at the position.
Especially in the red zone. Like, again, right, it'll be inconsistent, but, could we look up a year from now and be like, oh, hell, Tyler Conklin had 8 touchdowns last year?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Exactly.
100% in the realm of possibility there. I want to point this out about Allen Lazard. Last year, in his career, in his career, he's been, sort of up and down. He's been tied to Rodgers. But last year specifically, when he saw fewer than 7 targets, he averaged 9.2 fantasy points per game. So points was like, when he's the guy, great. But when Christian Watson came on last year, when they were sort of flirting with Romeo Doubs, again, he was averaging less than 10 fantasy points per game. He actually had under 50 yards in 6 of those 8 games. He does have some touchdown equity, because I do think there's a familiarity there, and Rodgers will look for him somewhat in the red zone. But to me, he's like a borderline top 50 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like, Lazard's a better signing for the Jets from an NFL perspective than he is a fantasy option. I think there's going to be better players in that range that you want to just take a flyer on, some rookies and that kind of stuff, than Lazard. I think Garrett Wilson is where you really want to, the main fantasy beneficiary in the passing game from Rodgers being there is Garrett Wilson. Like, he's first and second, and probably third.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned the biggest swing piece on the Jets offense yet, and that's Breece Hall, I think, who before he went down, I thought he was a chance to potentially be a #1 pick in fantasy the following year. So we'll see what his health situation is. Looks like he's tracking for week 1 at this point.
Yeah, he did the prehab before the surgery, which usually increases your chances of coming back a little early. I don't think the Jets are going to just take the training wheels off week 1 and go, here's 20 touches. But when you're looking middle of October, can Breece Hall be Breece Hall we saw 80% of last year?
Yep.
That would be a
By the way,
big-time
and that's what the acquisition of Rodgers gives you. You don't need to give him 20. Like, they needed to give him 20 touches because the other option was letting Zach Wilson throw it, or Mike White or Joe Flacco. And so they're like, we're going to try to hide our quarterback and just run the hell out of the ball with Hall and Carter. Now with Rodgers, they don't need to do that. I'll also say I don't have a stat for this. But I think that Aaron Rodgers is an egotistical guy.
Maybe.
Right? And now he's getting out of Green Bay and he's coming to New York. For the first time in his career, he's playing for a different franchise. And we all know Rodgers loves the media, or doesn't love the media, but certainly loves to needle the media. He's very media savvy. I'll leave it at that. How about that? He's very media aware and media savvy. And certainly the New York media is an animal like any other. All this is to say is just sort of gut call. Aaron Rodgers wants to statistically have a very big year. I mean, we've seen this throughout his career where, like, he gets left off the top 10 of the NFL 100. He's like, all right, screw you guys. I'm going to go win MVP. Yeah. Like, no one has a bigger chip on his shoulder than Aaron Rodgers. So I think he's going to want to prove, and it's not just going to be about the Jets winning. It's going to be about Aaron Rodgers had a great year, that you look up and the numbers are great. And so they get in close, and, here comes the play. Breece Hall off tackle. He's going to check out of that. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. Or hey, Mecole Hardman, I'm just going to do one of those like cheapo pitch passes that counts as a touchdown pass. Or
great.
Like, hey, Lazard, like just do a slant, and I'm going to get a cheap 2-yard touchdown pass. I do think there's going to be some of that. There's going to be some stat padding for 12 this year.
Yep, I agree.
I think so too. And there's also a little bit of that, his animosity towards Green Bay or whatever it may be, and you wouldn't draft me the first-round wide receiver. Now he's playing with Garrett Wilson. They went out and signed Lazard from the Packers. There'll be a little edge to Rodgers' game.
There's 100% an edge. Honestly, like, again, we're dissecting a stupid 3-second video of him entering camp for the first time. But I will say, for whatever it's worth, right? We've seen that video year after year after year, and a lot of times, like, the hair is shaggy, he's unshaven, he's wearing a whatever, a t-shirt, a sleeveless t-shirt, whatever you call it, and here, like, clean cut, shaven, he's got the glass, like he looked. I'm ready for business.
Yeah, I've been working out.
Right, exactly. I mean, look at that's a guy that's like, I'm here to be that bad man.
Top Gun Maverick.
Right? That is
there you go,
1,000%.
Yes.
100%.
Jay,
not
movie
like
reference? Wow.
Yeah, not like, hey, I'm
Jake
coming
Gyllenhaal
off
and
of,
Prisoners.
I'm coming in off a 10-day ayahuasca bender. Like, no, this is like, hey man, I am ready to go. Yeah. I am focused. I am laser focused.
The thing with Rodgers too is that he's been to 1 Super Bowl in his entire career, and he might be the most talented quarterback of all time. He's not the best because he doesn't have the career. He's only been to 1 Super Bowl.
Right.
Like, this is a chance for him. This is a real legacy moment for him. Same way it was in a different way for Brady going to the Bucs and winning one without Belichick. Like, Rodgers is going to show up this year. He's going to have a great year.
One final note I'll drop in too. I think if you have Rodgers in Dynasty, you got a kind of new lease on life. You probably thought you had him for maybe 1 more season at max. Yeah. Maybe there's something that keeps Aaron Rodgers playing for 2 more years.
Yeah, I think so. I would sign up for 2 years of Rodgers. That's where I think it's going. Especially, we'll see how this year plays out. But
and he changes his mind a lot once in a while.
He does. So. Like, it'll be a whole story. We'll see how this year plays out. How it goes for the Jets. How he enjoys being in New York and part of the media circus that is the Big Apple. But I agree with you. I think kind of reinvigorating Aaron Rodgers' career. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.